What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel for another video. We're taking a look at today another headlining news segment that has been going around over the past couple days or so. Another out of the blue departure from a band, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know, we're talking about Brian Burkheiser, formerly the lead singer of the band Prevail, has sadly parted ways with the band as of late, and it's just out of the blue, out of nowhere. In fact, we had a surprise announcement over on the social pages regarding his departure, which is very unclear, but they posted here rating to our Prevail family. Today, we share that we are mutually parting ways with Brian Burkheiser. This was a difficult decision, but we believe it was the right one, and we are all grateful for the 10 epic years we shared together. We wish Brian nothing but success and happiness. Moving forward, Eric will continue to be the powerhouse frontman we've all come to know and love. He will be backed up live by Dylan, who you've seen in a role many times over the years at the shows we've performed without Brian. Rest assured, we will continue to deliver high energy shows that we've made a pillar of our band, and we will continue to perform all the bangers from our catalog. All scheduled shows will continue exactly as planned. New music coming soon. See you there, the members of the band. Now, it's a very weird thing, you know, when a lot of bands, you know, like to part ways with the band. They usually share, like, you know, good thoughts, good feelings, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have, like, you know, stuff that they don't want to disclose to, like, you know, the general public and stuff like that. But, you know, it's a very weird thing. A lot of bands members have been, like, disappearing, or not really disappearing, but like leaving in a way that's like not formal. It's not, you know, it's not really inclusive. It's not really clear to where, you know, just to show like what's going on, what's happening. You know, a lot of these bands have been doing this nowadays, you know, but I'm sure there's some reasons, but, you know, I know Brian has been struggling with, you know, some stuff in the past, you know, with a lot of these bands, you know, deal with like depression, with heartache and stuff like that, which is understandable, which is okay. You know, sometimes you need to step back, sometimes you need to, you know, cope, you know, take some time off and deal with yourself, collect yourself and stuff like that. But, you know, Brian was dealing with, you know, some sort of like medical issue that a lot of people don't really know about. I know he's been struggling over the years, you know, with his voice. He's been struggling years with a lot of, you know, like internal pain as well, because, you know, believe it or not, and I just recently learned this myself, that Brian over the past couple years has been struggling with this rare disease called Eagle syndrome. And for those of you that don't know, it's a rare condition characterized by pain in the neck, face, and or jaw, often caused elongated or misaligned styloid process or a calcified styloid ligament. This can compress the nerves and blood vessels, leading to symptoms like sharp nerve pain, headaches, dizziness, and difficulty swallowing. Now, I probably said that word wrong, but I'm not a medical professional myself. But, you know, that's a very interesting thing to have. You know, I can probably see why it can cause pain, you know, especially when he's a vocalist. He's like straining his vocals, he's straining his like neck, like constantly throughout doing live shows and stuff like that. So I can definitely see that's been causing very, you know, intense pain, especially for a vocalist, you know, because he's like using his voice like constantly, you know, night after night, show after show. I can see why that can be a heartache to him. But over the past couple years, he's been gotten treatments. I've been seeing on like all of these past articles saying that like he's gotten surgeries to, you know, kind of numb this disease, kind of numb the pain of his stuff. There's an article stating here, it says, last May, the former Prevail vocalist shared news of his experience with Eagle syndrome, alongside with confirming that he would be missing the run of shows alongside to recovery time, according to Instagram. If I'm being honest, this disease has broken me over the last few years. I know something was wrong, dating all the way back to 2018, and it wasn't until recently that I officially figured out the problem, the post reads. I pushed myself through multiple tour cycles, trying my best to keep positive spirit, but as the days passed by, the negativity and pain grew. I could write a book with the list of symptoms that came with this disease. At the time, he thanked Dr. Osborne and his friends, the team at the clinic, for empowering him and making sure and showing him that he can get back to his life that he've always wanted. So I remember them saying that. Like, I also went like a post in the past year or so that he had to take a time off for the last leg of the tour or something like that. I think it was on like European shows like early last year or something like that, that he couldn't continue the show because just the pain was just so overwhelming for him that he couldn't, you know, bear, that he couldn't really stand up, he couldn't sing for the fans and stuff like that. So I can appreciate that. I can understand that. I can see why, you know, there's something that's so severe as it sounds, that you can't just, you can only do so much. You can't just like force yourself to get through the pain. Just you're gonna be like out there like singing the like stop mid shows, and just like disappoint the fans. Like, you don't want to do that. But if you have to, sometimes, band members, have to take some time off. Band members get sick, band members lose their voice. So it is, it's not an easy thing. Just going out there and like singing your heart out every single day, every single night, and especially when you're on tour and stuff like that. So like, I can appreciate that and can understand why he has to take the time off to do that sort of thing. But according to other inside sources, some of them saying that like Brian wasn't the reason why he departed from the band. And some people saying that he overcame that disease. He got the surgery, he got what he needed, he got his help. Speaking to Blunt magazine under anonymity, the source, who is associated with Osbourne, head of Neck Institute in Los Angeles, confirmed that Burkheiser made a full recovery from his condition thanks to Dr. Ryan Osbourne and his team. The source says that they remained in regular contact with him after his return to stage from I Prevail. So everything sounds all in good. Everything sounds like, he got what he needed. He got his surgery. He got like his medical procedures and stuff like that done. So like either the pain is either coming back to him, or it's either like starting up something else within his voice or vocals or like muscles or something like that. I don't know, but from here, according to this article, it says like he should be okay. He should be alive and well, coming back to this stuff. Maybe he couldn't make a full recovery in time, maybe to start the next album cycle, to start the next tour cycle. So if Burkheiser's departure from the I Prevail band wasn't health related, the real reason remains behind closed doors. While we may see a statement from him at some stage, for now only the band and Brian know the real reason. What is clear now is that Brian Burkheiser didn't walk away from I Prevail because of illness. He beat that, and while fans may never get the full story, they can at least put one rumor to rest. So it's up for debate. You could even say it could be because of the illness, just doesn't want to say anything about it. It could be because, the band has like internal feuds, that like, creative differences, that stuff that might not go well, and which happens a lot with all these mainstream bands and stuff like that. Or it could be like, the band members aren't just getting along. They're not getting along, as they used to be. They're not, they're clashing heads, they're becoming more distant and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's up for the debate. Like I said, I wasn't really too deep in I Prevail. They're one of those bands, that I used to listen to from back in the day. I think I started, when they first debuted, from when they first released, when they first released the Blank Spaces, the Taylor Swift cover, which blew up the internet from back in the day, and then they debuted their Heart vs. Mind album into their Lifelines EP, which is a lot more poppy. It was a lot more like easy punk, easy rock, easy core vibe, which I liked that. I got into that one a little bit. And then their Trauma album, which was a lot heavier, a lot more modern, a lot more heaviness, and a lot more emotional tone, which I liked in some of the ones on that one. Bow Down, definitely one of the heaviest hitting songs on that album to date, rather. Probably one of my favorite ones from them as well. And then they went to the True Power album, which was a bit okay, a little bit more focused on like the heaviness, a little bit more genty stuff, a little bit more like, down-tuned riffs, a lot more stuff. But I think it finally felt like the Trauma one was just a little bit better in my opinion. But then now they're just releasing they're teasing new album, they're teasing at least a new single, rather, or new music. So like over the past couple days or so like, who knows? Is Brian gonna be in that track? Is he gonna be in the new stuff? If he parted ways with them, like, was this previous? Was this, did they film all this stuff after he left the band? Is he still gonna be in the new album? I don't know. It's hard to say, because when they announce someone's like leaving, they tend to not want them in the band anymore when it comes to new stuff. And just judging from their like social, at least their Instagram page, they deleted all their past stuff and just only posting the new, announcements that have been coming out. So it is a weird thing. It is definitely a weird thing. My heart goes out to Brian. It is probably like a sad thing, or like a stab in the back kind of feeling when in a band for so long and then they push you away or they let you go kind of thing. So I don't know. It's hard to say, But Eric, he does do a good job on the vocals. He does do the growls. He's the lead, dirty vocalist of the band. But like when he can do his cleans, I don't know if he can do Brian's cleans though. That's just me, because Brian has that unique voice to him. He has that higher end to him. Eric is just lower, it's just deeper. He does that kind of talking stuff, a little bit of rap in there, here and there as well. But like, I don't know if he can match Brian's energy. I don't know if he can match Brian's vocal prowess, if that makes sense. Because like I said, when he can do the choruses very well. I don't know how he can do the choruses, those catchy choruses that Brian always did in the past albums. I don't know if Eric can hold up, but maybe they're going a whole new route. Maybe they're just going like, just heavy, just no cleans at all on the new stuff. I don't know, it's hard to say, but like I said, man, amongst all these other bands, amongst all these other news that have been going on lately, similar to other people leaving bands like, Aaron from the Amity Affliction, which is such a sad story to say as well. They're one of my favorite bands. It's hard to say that he's leaving the band as well, dealing with depression, dealing with, internal stuff and struggles, which I can appreciate that a little bit more, but, it is what it is. That one's a weird story in itself, because, Joel dealt with that stuff years ago, and now he's doing fine now, but now Aaron's dealing with that stuff, and then they just let him go. It is a weird, it's kind of a sketchy, thing to get into, but, like I said, similar to other bands, like, As I Lay Dying, when they came back, the band just completely fell apart with other internal issues. Tim is struggling with a lot of, mental health issues, battles and stuff like that. So it's a really sad thing, especially when they came out with a completely new album late last year. So, it is a struggle. It is a sad thing to see, all these, popular bands from back in the day just crumble and fall apart. But I guess that's the reality of a band. They do fall apart, they do break up. When one of your favorite bands, falls apart, it is a, sad thing to see. That's just the thing, though. So don't take your favorite band for granted. You never know when they're gonna break up. You never know when they're not gonna make music anymore. So just see them while you can. Share your support, share your love for the band, and just make sure that the fans, they see the fans, appreciation for them, and then maybe it can turn some heads a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't kick them out of the band because the fans really like them, or maybe we shouldn't do this. The fans wouldn't like that kind of thing. So spread your love, spread your thoughts and opinions on your favorite bands, because you never know when your last day is to see them live or hearing any music from them. He sat out in 2024 following multiple surgeries to treat Eagle syndrome, a rare condition affecting the neck and throat. The timeline along made with it was an easy assumption. Maybe the recovery didn't go as planned. Maybe the pain came back. Maybe the band needed someone fully ready to go. So, but going back to I Prevail, it is a sad thing to see, but you're never gonna know the full details, and you're never gonna know what actually happened behind closed doors. But this one's a very weird one indeed. The fact that they did, wipe all their socials, the fact that they did, clean, they did a clean slate basically. They got rid of all their old stuff and just kind of removed him from the face of the band pretty much. It is a weird thing. It is a very weird, stab in the back kind of feeling for me. But like I said, I don't know, it is what it is. Music labels, they have to move forward. They have to keep the band going. So maybe something, sketchy there, maybe, or maybe something, its pain did come back. I don't know. It is sad to say, but hopefully the bandmates, aren't, batting heads. Hopefully they didn't, burn the bridges between each other, and hopefully they did, they do come back, at least at some point for some shows and stuff like that, to bring him back as maybe features, maybe. I don't know. It is a sad thing to say, but hopefully Brian maybe forms a new band. Hopefully he does some solo projects, but we're just gonna have to wait and see on this one here. But a lot of weird such situations are happening, ladies and gentlemen, but a lot new music is coming out so far this year already, so I'm super excited to check out this stuff as well. And maybe I might have to check out this new I Prevail stuff. Maybe see if it's even worthy of a listen, if Eric can hold up his end of the bargain when it comes to singing. I don't know, I'm just gonna have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, but with that being said, be sure to hit that subscribe button, especially new here, because we're going through every single banger on the channel, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to miss out on a single one. Guarantee that. And I'll see you guys in the next one.